sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, let's get into it. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the Jeffrey Epstein files and this whole wave of declassification efforts happening right now. It's a crazy story, right? And we've got some pretty interesting sources to work with. A recent Fox News article is reporting that Attorney General Pam Bondi is promising to release some Epstein-related information. Plus, Congress is getting in on the action, pushing to declassify all sorts of documents. We're talking flight logs, maybe even some big names revealed, and all those unanswered questions surrounding Epstein's crimes.
Oh.
And we can't forget about the whole debate over government transparency. What gets kept secret and why? What should be revealed? It's going to be a wild ride, so buckle up.
Definitely feels like a real-life thriller, and this goes way beyond just Epstein. It's like we're seeing this growing demand for accountability from those in power, this real shift in how the public views secrecy and what they expect.
Yeah, it feels like a tipping point. Okay, so let's jump right into this Fox News article. Attorney General Bondi was on Jesse Watters' primetime, and she actually dropped a bombshell.
Yeah.
The DOJ is going to release some of the Epstein files. And get this, it's happening this Thursday, February 27th, 2025.
Yeah.
But she was quick to emphasize that they have to protect the over 250 alleged victims, making sure their identities are kept safe.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's crucial. But think about what could be the most revealing information. It's those flight logs, not just the destinations, but who else was on those flights with Epstein? Were there any powerful people, politicians, maybe celebrities consistently flying with him? Those connections to his network, potential accomplices, that's what investigators will be looking for.
Right. Those connections are key. And Bondi even said there are a lot of names, a lot of information. She called Epstein's actions pretty sick, which honestly feels like a huge understatement.
Yeah, no kidding.
What do you think the impact of this release could be? Could it lead to new investigations or even prosecutions?
Oh, it's definitely possible. Remember, Epstein's death left so many questions unanswered. If these files reveal solid evidence linking powerful people to his crimes, law enforcement would be under immense pressure to take action. It could be a whole new can of worms, really.
It's like that saying, sunlight is the best disinfectant. And this whole push for transparency, it's not just about the Epstein case. We're seeing Republican lawmakers, specifically Rep. Anna Paulina Luna, they're really leading the charge to declassify a whole bunch of documents, everything from Epstein to even the JFK assassination.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And Luna, she actually chairs the House Oversight Committee's task force on the declassification of federal secrets. They can subpoena witnesses, demand documents, hold hearings, a really powerful tool for Congress, in its oversight role.
Absolutely. They have some serious power. So Luna sent these letters to the DOJ February 11th and 19th, requesting briefings and documents related to these declassification efforts.
Right. And the DOJ finally responded. It was February 26th, just yesterday, acknowledging Luna's requests. They said they're committed to, and I quote, meeting its legal record-keeping obligations. Which is interesting, because legal record-keeping doesn't necessarily equal immediate declassification. This could mean a long, drawn-out process, reviews, redactions, maybe even legal battles. Who knows?
It's a bureaucratic maze, for sure. But, it seems like this pressure from Congress is working, at least to some degree. Because it's not just Rep. Luna, right? Didn't President Trump just last month sign an executive order about declassifying a bunch of top-secret documents? And that included files related to JFK, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr.
Oh, yeah, he did. It's an order directing agencies to come up with plans to release these really sensitive files. It shows just how much power the executive branch has in this whole declassification process. But it also makes you wonder, what are the motivations behind it all?
Yeah, what are you thinking? What's the angle?
Well, think about the timing. Trump signed this order just a month before some of the Epstein files are supposed to be released. It makes you wonder if there's a connection. Maybe he's anticipating some blowback, some fallout, and maybe he's trying to get ahead of the story, releasing potentially damaging information about past events before it all comes crashing down.
So like a preemptive strike.
Yeah, potentially. But we also have to look at the bigger picture here. There's this growing distrust of institutions, a real hunger for transparency, and this whole push for declassification, it taps into that feeling. For politicians, it's a way to connect with voters who feel like they've been kept in the dark for way too long.
Like they're finally being heard, yeah. So it's clear that this whole declassification thing is a pretty huge deal. But let's zoom back in on the Epstein case specifically. The Fox News article, they specifically mentioned his co-defendant, Ghislaine Maxwell. They even included a picture of them together.
Right, and it's a crucial reminder of how serious these allegations against Epstein are. Maxwell's conviction for sex trafficking charges, it just cemented the fact that this was a well-organized operation. And these files, they could reveal the inner workings of that whole operation, potentially naming names, individuals who benefited or even participated in it.
It's chilling, honestly. I mean, that mention of Maxwell, that photo, it just sends chills down my spine. It brings back the weight of those accusations. And you can't help but wonder, how deep does this rabbit hole really go?
That's the question, isn't it? And that's why Rep. Luna is so insistent on getting those answers. She's actually publicly expressed her frustration with how silent the DOJ was at first on this whole thing. She even sent a letter to, well, basically everyone. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, Attorney General Bondi, National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, and White House counsel David Warrington, demanding a briefing by Thursday, the same day those Epstein files were supposed to drop.
Wow, she's not messing around.
Nope, she's serious. And her persistence, it just shows how important congressional oversight really is. It's their job to hold the executive branch accountable, especially when it comes to transparency. Sometimes it takes a strong personality like Luna to break through all that bureaucracy and actually get some answers.
It's like watching a political thriller unfold, but in real time. You've got Congress demanding answers, the DOJ scrambling to respond, and this looming deadline for the release of information that could be incredibly explosive.
Yeah, and we can't forget about the public. There's this massive amount of interest in this case. People want to know who was involved, what did they know, and how did they get away with it for so long?
Absolutely. It's a reminder that this isn't just about historical curiosity. It's about justice, accountability, and finding the truth.
You got it. And as we get closer to Thursday's release, that anticipation, it's just building. Who knows what those files will actually reveal?
It's anyone's guess at this point. This is going to be huge.
It really is. It's just amazing how this one case, this Epstein case, it just ties into so many different parts of our society. We're talking wealth, power, the justice system, even how transparent our government really is.
Yeah, you're right. It really is like those threads you pull on a sweater, keep tugging, and the whole thing could unravel. And we can't forget about the real people caught up in all of this,
Yeah.
The victims and their families, they've been waiting years for answers, for some kind of justice.
Absolutely. Their stories, they're at the heart of all of this. And this information in these files, it could finally provide some closure, validation, maybe even lead to further legal action. Who knows?
Hopefully, it will at least shed some light on what really happened, help hold those responsible accountable. But, let's step back for a second. Think about the bigger picture. This push for declassification. Isn't it about something more fundamental, like the public's right to know what's going on?
You hit the nail on the head. Transparency. It's the foundation of accountability. If we don't know what our government is doing, how can we hold them responsible? And this applies to what's happening now, not just events in the past. The more we know, the better equipped we are to participate, to have our voices heard,
Absolutely. It's about empowering citizens to be informed, engaged, not just passive bystanders. But do you really think this will lead to a more transparent government in the long run? Or is this just a temporary thing, this surge of interest that will eventually fade away?
It's hard to say for sure, but the fact that we're having this conversation, that there's this much public pressure, this scrutiny from Congress, it's a good sign. And with the release of at least some of the Epstein files happening tomorrow, we're going to get a glimpse into what's been hidden for so long.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. Okay, so we've talked about the potential impact, but how does this whole declassification process actually work? Is there like a secret button they press to make these files public?
Oh, I wish it were that easy. There's a whole system, involves multiple agencies. It's this balancing act between transparency and national security.
So no magic button then. What are the steps involved?
Think of it like a multi-stage process. First, someone like a member of Congress or even the president requests to declassify specific documents. Then the agency that holds those documents, like the CIA or FBI, they conduct a review. They look for anything that could harm national security if it's released, or information that could affect ongoing investigations.
I can see how that could get really complicated. Who decides what's a legitimate threat to national security? Couldn't that be abused to cover up information that's embarrassing or to protect certain people?
You're right, that's a big concern. There's always that risk that the classification system is used as a shield, to hide information from the public, maybe for political reasons or to protect reputations.
That's why this whole debate is so important. It's about finding that balance between protecting real secrets and ensuring accountability. So back to the Epstein files. We know that some of them are being released tomorrow, but what about the rest? What happens to those?
That's where things get a little unclear. Rep. Luna, she's been pushing for the release of all the Epstein-related files, but we don't know exactly what's in them or when they might become public. It's possible that some of those files are so sensitive, so potentially damaging, that they'll stay classified for years, maybe even decades.
So it's like we're getting a few pieces of the puzzle, but the whole picture is still hidden.
Exactly, and that's why congressional oversight is so crucial. Lawmakers like Rep. Luna, they have the power to keep the pressure on, demand answers, and fight for the public's right to know.
It's a reminder that democracy, it's not a finished product. It's an ongoing process, something that takes effort and participation from all of us.
I couldn't agree more. As we wait for tomorrow's release, it's a good time to think about what we hope to learn. What questions do we want answered? What truths are we seeking? And how can we use that knowledge to create a more just and transparent society?
Yeah, those are really good questions to consider. This whole thing, it feels like we're peeling back layers of a complex onion. And who knows what we'll find underneath.
And that's what makes it a deep dive, right? If it were easy, everyone would be doing it.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered a lot, but let's go back to one important thing. Trump's executive order. We touched on it earlier, but what's the historical context here? Have there been similar efforts to declassify things in the past? And what happened?
That's a great point. The declassification of documents related to JFK's assassination, that's a perfect example. For decades, conspiracy theories were running wild because of all the secrecy. When some of those files were finally released, it did shed some light on things, but it also fueled even more speculation.
Though, even with declassification, there's no guarantee of complete transparency, or that all the questions will be answered.
Right. Sometimes releasing information creates more questions than it answers.
So with JFK, did those released files reveal anything that was truly groundbreaking? Or was it more about confirming what people already suspected?
It was a bit of both, actually. Some of the revelations did confirm those suspicions about government cover-ups and intelligence failures. But then other details, like about Lee Harvey Oswald's connections to the Soviet Union, well, that added new layers to the whole story.
So even with declassification, there's no guarantee of closure or a neat ending.
Exactly. History is messy, and the truth is often hard to pin down.
That makes me wonder, if Trump's executive order leads to the release of files on RFK and MLK, what kind of impact could that have? Could it change how we understand history?
It's definitely possible. Both of those assassinations, they were huge moments in American history, and the circumstances surrounding them have been controversial for so long. If those files contain something truly shocking, it could change how we view those events and their impact on history.
It's like opening Pandora's box, isn't it?
Yeah.
Once those secrets are out, there's no putting them back.
And that's the thing about transparency. It's a double-edged sword. It can shed light on the darkness, but it can also unleash forces that are hard to control.
So we've got these potential historical revelations coming up, combined with the ongoing fight for transparency in the Epstein case. It's a lot to take in.
It really is. And it highlights that complex relationship between power, secrecy, and the public's right to know.
And the fact that all of this is happening now at this specific moment, it feels significant, like we're at a turning point in how we view government accountability and transparency.
I agree. The stakes are high, and the outcome is uncertain.
One thing's for sure, we are living in some interesting times. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely glued to the edge of my seat, waiting to see what happens next.
That's right. It's crazy. We started talking about the Epstein files, and now we're here, JFK, RFK, MLK. Like every time we turn around, there's another layer of secrecy. It really is like we're pulling back this curtain on this whole system. Like it's designed to keep us in the dark. And it makes you wonder, how much of this is really about national security? And how much is it about protecting powerful people?
Yeah, that's the big question. Where do we draw the line? But with all this focus on government secrets and these mysteries from the past, we have to remember the human cost.
You're absolutely right. The victims of Epstein's crimes, their families, they've been through so much. And the fact that they're still fighting for justice, it reminds us that this isn't just about curiosity, about uncovering secrets for the sake of it. It's about holding people accountable and hopefully preventing something like this from ever happening again.
Their stories are so important. A powerful reminder that secrecy has real consequences.
And it goes beyond just the victims of these specific crimes. When there's a lack of transparency, it erodes trust in our institutions, it fuels cynicism, and weakens our democracy.
So how do we deal with this? How do we balance the need for security with the public's right to know?
It's a tough question. No easy answers. But I think it starts with us demanding more from our leaders, holding them accountable, pushing for more transparency, making it clear that we won't just accept secrecy for no reason.
We have to be engaged citizens, informed and ready to speak up.
Exactly. And this whole deep dive, it's not just about Epstein or declassification. It's about having a bigger conversation about power, accountability, and the kind of society we want to be a part of.
So much to think about. I'm sure our listeners have a ton of questions after all of this. What stands out to you the most from everything we've talked about today?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's the sheer scale of it all. It's not just one case, one set of files. It's this pattern of secrecy that goes back decades. It affects every part of our government. And it makes you wonder, what else is out there? What other truths are waiting to be revealed?
It's both daunting and exciting at the same time. Like we're entering this uncharted territory and nobody knows what's going to happen next.
Exactly. That's what makes this moment so important. We're on the verge of some potentially huge revelations, and the choices we make now as individuals and as a society, they're going to shape the future.
So what's next? We've got this release of some of the Epstein files coming up, but the fight for transparency, it's not over.
Oh, it's definitely not over. It's a marathon, not a sprint. We have to stay informed, stay engaged, keep pushing for answers. This deep dive, it's just the beginning.
If you're listening and this has sparked your curiosity or left you with even more questions, don't stop here. Do your own research, talk to others, keep this conversation going.
The pursuit of truth, it's a journey, and it's one we have to take together.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and stay engaged.
Absolutely.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll.